Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Abdullah Konte once again. Another episode of Win Sports here. Kind of wanted to just talk about some, not a lot of news from today, especially in Commanderland, right? But I kind of wanted to still jump in on a conversation that I kind of tried to start, or just talked a little bit about yesterday. And one that I got some more people's opinions on, or I'd heard a little bit more from other people about, and it was about the Arvell Reese being, mocked here. Initially, obviously, we saw the Daniel Jeremiah, mock draft that he had, having Arvell Reese coming this way. But then I also was listening to Big Doug and Carmi's podcast as well, and they had Ian Cummins on there. And he also mentioned that, it was a surprise, even though some people were surprised that Daniel Jeremiah had him mocked, he also had him mocked in his last mock to DC. So, at this point, should fans get excited about the potential of that player coming here? I kind of feel like we need to maybe pump the brakes just a little bit, just because, he is a talented player that's going to be coveted by a lot of different teams. But what are the reasons why he's starting to maybe slide? And I don't even want to say slide, but just being paired to this team in regards to some of the other teams overall, right? Like, it just seems odd as a guy who's been mocked at the number 2 spot for a long time. Why is it all of a sudden that people are interested in mocking him here? And honestly, does he fit with this team? So the first thing I would say is that, like, look, the biggest thing is, does he fit with this team? The kid, you guys know that I had mentioned this in my video that I did maybe about a month ago about the 7 players that I thought would be available at that number 7 spot. And I had Arvell Reese in that list, but I had him at number 5, which was crazy because he could be potentially the most talented one. That's how some people view it, right? And the only reason why I had him at number 5, because I had said that I really was in love with his play and his game when I first started watching him, but then the more I started to watch him, I wasn't quite sure if he was a great fit, because of the fact that he doesn't he doesn't rush the passer enough, right? He plays a lot more linebacker, and there was times where he would just go kind of quiet, when you're expecting him to kind of make big plays. But when you think about the way he plays in a Durante Jones, / Brian Flores, since that's kind of the defense we think he's going to be, bringing to DC, he might be one of the most perfect people for that. I mean, if you looked at that defense, they rush the linebackers a lot. They bring a lot of pressure. They're pretty aggressive, and with one of those linebackers at all times kind of coming in at any moment, and a guy like Arvell Reese, for how fast he is, being able to stay at that linebacker spot, being able to rush the passer, we're not convinced. We're not sure if he can play edge. And a lot of people are saying that he's Micah Parsons, including myself. I've made statements saying that he plays similar to that. But is it possible that he plays more like a linebacker that rushes very well, instead of a edge rusher that can drop back and play a little linebacker, right? So that's like the first thing. It's his style of play maybe doesn't fit for a specific edge rusher type person, right? He does play a little bit more off-ball linebacker, and there was, I was trying to find information on if this was true, but I remember I'd mentioned the fact that in the first, I think, like 6 to 7 games, he had 6.5 sacks, for Ohio State, and then in the last 6, he had 0 sacks. And I remember thinking, like, that's kind of like a red flag. I mean, what happened? His as the team played harder teams, he just kind of disappeared, and that notion of him disappearing was kind of my thing. And I had a couple Ohio State fans say that he requested to play more linebacker than edge. Is that true? I don't know. But if he wants to play more linebacker than edge, that's something that he's probably gonna, some of these teams are gonna find out about at the combine. We're gonna learn a lot about him at the combine, right? And if he wants to play more linebacker than edge, or if he feels that that's truly his position, then he more likely wouldn't get drafted, in the first 5, because if he's not a true edge, the reason why people want to draft him so high is because they feel that they can convert him to edge. If he's not a true edge, then it doesn't really make sense for him to go in that top 5 when you have people like Ruben Bain and David Bailey. And that's kind of another thing. Some of these other, prospects are getting viewed higher. David Bailey, I think, is skyrocketing up the charts, right? Like, I think that he's somebody that is really going to impress a lot of the scouts. I don't know if he'll run at the combine or anything, if he'll participate, but he is somebody that I've been hearing more as being, moving up, which is why Daniel Jeremiah had him as his number 2 pick for the Jets, right? So I think that's kind of the thought here. Is that is Arvell Reese a true edge or a true backer? And yeah, I kind of, hearing Ian Cummins talk about it, I really did think, like, man, he's not wrong. He might be more of a guy who is a linebacker that can just rush the passer well. And when you think about what the Commanders need for this defense, that's the guy, right? Like, that is a very strong piece to this Durante Jones / Brian Flores, type of defense, right? It's the reason why we're so excited to see what happens with Luvu, because Luvu plays that similarly. I do think he can. He's very versatile. So, like, you could have some teams who just say, hey, we're going to put him at edge and, have him drop back here and there. Is he going to want to do that? Is that something that's going to fit for him? And I think that the team fit is maybe like that one of those last things, right? Like, is he a team? Is he going to fit well with this team? Is he going to fit well with the Commanders, or are there other teams in there that will fit super well with him, right? The fact of the matter is, when you look at the top 6 teams that are going to be picking, how many of them would really take a chance on an Arvell Reese or pick him? I mean, look, the Raiders are not going to. They're going to pick Mendoza from what we've heard. The Jets, obviously, is a contender. They do have D linemen or D ends that they can say, hey, we want to pick this linebacker, we believe in his potential, whatever. Obviously Arizona's kind of all over the place. We hear more O-line with them, but they could just pick best player available, and they feel like Arvell Reese is that guy. They can grab him. You have Tennessee who's also looking for an edge, but do they want a true edge rusher versus a linebacker? We don't know, but they really need an edge rusher. But there's also talk about receiver there. The Giants, I think the same thing. They need a receiver. They already have edge players, so I don't really think that they would do it. And then also, they could in Cleveland pair him with Myles Garrett, but they also desperately need receivers. So there's a reason to think that he could fall. I don't know. I mean, I think if the Commanders are there, there's at least like 4 or 5 guys that they should really be considering, and Arvell Reese should be that guy. Now, there is a little bit, and I hate to bring this part of it up, but there are also some people that believe that he may fall in the draft, mainly because of there could be a little bit of character concerns. And this is kind of just hearsay. There hasn't been anything that officially has come out, but there has been some rumblings, like, is there anything in his past or anything about him? He is young. He's 20, which is obviously a good thing and bad thing, because you want somebody who's young, that's ready and motivated, but you also want somebody who's mature. Obviously I'm not going to say anything until I hear if that's actually a thing or not. But for the most part, that is something that could maybe potentially have him slide. We saw what happened with James Pierce in Atlanta, which was just horrible. That we saw how Mike Green slid last year, so that's another reason why he could potentially slide. Now, do I think that Arvell Reese is going to potentially be there? It's like 50-50. I don't know. I mean, my biggest thing is I think he's going to go crazy at the combine if he does participate, because he just seems like the guy is like a physical freak, that he's going to put on a great show, and it's going to be hard for people to pass up on his potential. So as much as I want people to get excited about the next player that's going to come to this area, I do think that there is, like, don't want to get anybody to get their hopes up believing he's going to be there, because even though he's been mocked a few times recently, he has been more mocked in the top 3. When you go and look at the all the mock drafts that are being done, he's usually always in that top 3. So we'll see what happens. It would be crazy to see him in this defense. That's the biggest thing for me. The main reason why I get excited is that, like I said, I kind of fell out of love with him because of the fact that I thought he wasn't really a true edge, and I was like, hey, they really need a true edge. But when I think about what he could do in this defense, he could be, an all-star at this defense for sure. Like it's clear he can do a lot of different things, so he could probably be really well or play very well in any defense. But it's different from like Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, I think it doesn't really matter. Whatever team he plays for, he's going to be dynamic. I do think it depends on where this guy falls on how well of a player he'll be. And I think if he does go to the Commanders, that would be a great addition for them. Could be a match made in heaven. But there's some other prospects that might be there. I'm not sure if he's going to be there. So ultimately, I just thought it was a interesting conversation. If you guys haven't watched this film, go watch it. It is exciting. I mean, you'll see the reasons why people question if he's an edge, because he doesn't always rush the passer. But from what he can do from the linebacker position is actually very impressive too. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for the love and just all the support. Shout out to some of my guys, the APR guys, as well as specifically Brian Murphy. He said I was taking credit for the taco holder mention in that last video with the uniform. So make sure you guys give him love on social media, Homer McFanboy. But yeah, definitely wanted to say thank you for everybody who is showing us love and attention here. We appreciate it, and hopefully we can continue on our journey here. So thank you so much. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.